Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Signal 11 Outdoors. And we have a very special guest today, Jared Mills. Jared, how are you?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate you being patient while I've been busy spring traveling and all that good stuff. I've been looking forward to this.
Good. Likewise. We spoke about trying to get this timed up and get it going. And finally, like you said, we finally found the moment to make it happen. So
Yeah.
we're recording this the first couple days of June. Probably going to air very soon afterwards. So we're gonna get right into it. But it's definitely again, really appreciate you being here and spending some time with us. I've watched you throughout the last couple of years and some really interesting stuff. So it's good that I can actually ask you some questions and the folks can get to hear some of the great answers you're going to have, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, that's the hope anyways. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good. All right. Well, we're going to jump right into this. Is the kind of stuff I like to do. We're sitting here in June across these great United States. We're going to talk deer hunting. And if we mention turkey at some point, I think the season's over pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'll probably get toward the end to ask you how you did with that. I don't really know. But talking about early, we're in June. We're going to talk about some tactics that we can or what you suggest as people implement and what you do, and maybe what's different parts of the state. You're in Iowa. I'm in New Jersey, but we have people watching this from all over the country. So let's jump right into it. If you I'll ask you. I guess we'll start out with a question. What is one at this time of the year? What is something that you are typically doing in early June? And if we have to go backwards a little bit, if you did something a month or two ago, please bring us up to date on it. Let's start out with that.
Yeah, I love this time of year. There's so much going on. I mean, maybe people don't immediately think about that. You think about whitetails and hunting primarily taking place in the fall, but I've over the years have come to almost love this time of year the best. The process, the journey, the work that goes into it is some of my favorite. I love, the habitat work, the food plot work. Like you said, we're in early June. I've been seeing some bucks growing their antlers, starting to get to their G2s already, and we're not much more than a couple weeks away from being able to recognize some of these deer and getting a feel for what they're going to look like this coming season. So I love this time of year. I've been super busy this spring with land projects primarily. I've taken on more than I ever have, and that just for my stuff, but working for other landowners. I just finished up a couple days ago planting 70 acres of CRP and native grasses for a guy. Planted a bunch of switchgrass this spring. Obviously, the food plots, still trying to finish up some of that. I've taken so much on that a lot of my stuff kind of took a back seat, and I'm scrambling to get it in, try to catch some of these timely rains and stuff this time of year. But I'm finally getting towards the end of kind of that quote unquote spring planting season of the habitat and the food. I'm probably going to focus a little bit here for a few weeks of starting to get more cameras out, get some of these setups because, like I said, I enjoy watching these deer grow all summer long. It's the process that's fascinating to me, and I think it never gets old. It's cool to just see what they look like year after year, and to watch that happen. So I'm gonna try to start deploying a bunch of cameras here in the next week or two, and then once we hit July, mid-July, it's starting to work on fall food plot. That's probably the busiest peak of food plot season for me and most guys. Is that you're planting your fall plots later in the summer, and so we'll be busy with that. But a lot of work, a lot of sweat equity goes into this. I think it becomes less, it's long, grueling days, but it becomes easier to manage when you fall in love with the process. And I certainly have over the years. So yeah, that's what I'm busy. I spend a lot of time in the field and in the tractor and stuff like that this time of year.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's funny because years ago I was when I first got into hunting as a young kid and was going out with adults. They would take me out. It was really it was more for deer hunting. It was really seasonal for me. It was
Yeah.
I'm talking like 12, 16 years old. In those years, it was we were involved in other things. We're young and whether it be sports and stuff like that, and other types of hunting and fishing and all. And then deer season kind of was for me in the beginning before I even got into the bow hunting. It was really like it was a winter thing we did, and it boy has it changed though over the last 20 plus years. I'm doing a small scale version of what you're doing, and learning, always learning, but also teaching other people. And it has become thankfully a full time job that I enjoy doing, and I do it really just for myself, my family, and
Yeah.
work with some friends. So you're out
Yeah.
there working even harder. You're doing clients as well with that, with land
Yeah.
management.
taking on land management projects for other landowners and stuff. It's cool to see the shift, like you just alluded to. It's changed a lot, and do you have to do all this stuff to kill deer? Absolutely not. But like I said, you start to love the process of it. It's just a way to extend the hunting season if you want to look at it that way. I mean, we're all obsessed with those couple months in the fall and the winter where we actually get to be in a tree stand, but you can extend that, just your whitetail mindset and everything like that, by doing it throughout the year. And so I think that's a good thing. I plant big food plots and stuff like that to have success, but it is really cool. I consider myself a wannabe farmer. I love the cultivating ground and watching things grow and watching the deer respond. It's just a really cool process that I've come to appreciate.
Right. Agree with you 100% on that. Something I was just thinking as you're saying it, for a lot of folks, they might not have the ability to operate on a farm, or if they belong to a club that they can only go certain times of the year, and also it's a little difficult for them to even understand, the level of dedication that you're able to put into a nice big piece of property and all. But I tell folks all the time, even if you're strictly a public land guy, by getting out there, like let's go back to May, whether you're turkey hunt or not, you get out there April, May, and you start to see the changes in the land as you're getting in and out of there, the vegetation, maybe trees have fallen where there was a normal corridor, which may change things. You also
Yeah.
see a totally different animal when you see deer out there that time of year. They're totally different than they will be midsummer and obviously during hunting season. So it's really cool to take all of that in.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, it can be public land guy. It can be the 10-acre permission guy. It doesn't have to be the big landowners. I mean, over the years I've become a little bit more efficient. I just bought my first tractor 2 weeks ago.
Ah,
But I've planted
congratulations.
food plots. Yeah, thank you. I've planted food plots and done the habitat work forever at a very quote unquote poor man level, where you're hauling in a backpack sprayer, you're raking, manual raking. There's so many ways to skin that. It's just about being out there and doing what you can to improve it. And whether or not I plant a lot of food plots every year, not just for my own hunting. Most of them aren't for my own hunting, most of them for other people, or just planting them for the fun of watching the deer utilize and benefit from it and keeping the deer on and around your property. Of course, that benefits the hunting, but it's cool just to watch them. And you talk about being out in the woods this time of year, watching the deer behavior and how it's different. All that stuff can play into this big year-round puzzle you're trying to put together. Watch how they behave. Keep learning deer behavior in general and getting better at understanding that, understanding body language, understanding where they'd like to spend their time during different portions of the year, because that changes constantly. I think all those things can help you become a better hunter for sure, but just a better woodsman in general, and give you a better appreciation for what hunting is about, and just, I think it helps with the longevity of your motivation of doing it and being out there.
Right. Right. Agree with you on that as well. It's interesting because you mentioned like the 10, 14, 20 acre permission guy. Those are probably the majority. That's probably the majority. Well, I'm going to speak about where I am here in New Jersey, right? We do have farms, believe it or not. It's not all refineries, but we do have
Yeah.
some. I mean, where I live, and a lot of New Jersey is absolutely gorgeous with a lot of great deer. But I've had many people say to me, "Oh, well, you're talking to guys with 200 plus acre farms or leases or this or that." But myself, I mean, I will get onto a decent sized property every couple of years, and then I'll lose it or whatever, or the farm literally gets sold. It's not just a saying; it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of that right now, but. Some of those permission pieces I have, that some of them I've had for 15 years or so. Some of them are probably the smallest ones, around 14 acres. And like you said, there's a lot to learn. I don't go out there and crash through those woods every day because there's no reason to, but there's a lot to learn that you can later on sitting, pre-rut, you're sitting in a ladder or hang on or whatever, and you kind of know where those deer have been, but whether it's camera or your own set of eyes. And that is just a huge advantage. So definitely spending time, I don't care how big it is spending time in the woods and becoming a woodsman, having woodsmanship is paramount to everything else.
Yep. Yeah, and the parcel size doesn't necessarily dictate everything. You can be in the right 10 acres and the wrong 200. There's advantages and disadvantages of both. I mean, I have spots. I'm in ag country here in Iowa, so a lot of tillable row crop ground, and I may have access to a 200-acre property, but only 10 acres of it's huntable. I mean, I consider that a 10-acre property, and those
Right.
have their disadvantage in that they have a lower ceiling of a holding capacity. It's only going to hold so many deer. They're only going to be there so often. But the biggest advantage is when they're there, your chances are super high of killing them. You know, it's just it's just an odds game when you look at it that way. So, you know, understanding that you can't just look at parcel size or how many acres and automatically know how good of a hunting property that is.
Right. No, you're right. It's something that happened this year for me. And I'm listening to the way you describe the 200-acre piece with parcels on that 200 acres that become the huntable spots.
Yeah,
I landed a spot right now, luckily for me, through a friend, that it's interesting because I've been hunting for a long time. And this is the first piece of property that I've ever been on with so many trees, but so little land contour and so little differential. I live up in the mountain area, right? So
yeah,
there's a lot of peaks and valleys and knobs and this and that and creeks and mud. Well,
yeah.
this spot that I'm at is a going to be a great spot. But I tell you what, I've been struggling. I've walked it probably 5 times so far. And every single time I've walked it, I went, nah, that first spot I picked, that's no good. There's no reason to. So I'm actually struggling with a place that's loaded with trees. They're all exactly the same age. When those leaves are down, because I went and looked at it in the winter, you could see for 150 yards with no problem at all. So a deer can see twice as far. So I'm struggling with that, and it's funny because I'm like, wow, I'm so used to the rocky terrain where it kind of dictates some of the movement unpressure deer will have to utilize to get through and check areas with the wind. I'm actually struggling on a piece with all kinds of woods. I haven't set up a single stand yet.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I have a decent amount of experience of hunting that style of farm here in Iowa. A lot of times they're tree farms, you know, planted in rows, planted at the same time. All the trees are pretty uniform. Hold a lot of deer because it's a lot of cover and you know, typically they're relatively younger trees in these situations, and so like that it's a lot of low form, so it holds a lot of deer, but it's very homogeneous, like you pointed out. There's nothing to there's no not many pinches or funnels. They can walk where they want. They can get from point A to point B a million different ways, and so can be super tough to figure out for sure. Sometimes you have to, you know, if you want to get after it, you can kind of manipulate some of that stuff depending on what you have to do. But yeah, that's another one of those examples where there's an advantage of it holding a lot of deer, but there's a disadvantage of it being tough to figure out.
And the spot I'm going to be in is a bow only spot. So my shot's limited. I think I'm going to have to be very mobile because, I may get up, 20 feet high and sit up in a tree and sit 3 or 4 sits and nothing within 80 yards. Obviously I have to move because
Yeah.
there's nothing that's going to bring them there. So, and with that being said, are you big on mineral sites?
I would not say big on mineral sites. I use them on occasion. The toughest part is, well, a couple things. I'd say two reasons why I'm not huge on them, but I do use them. One, the laws in Iowa have always been a little bit gray when it comes to minerals. You can't use them during hunting season or hunt trails leading to and from. But as you know, minerals oftentimes leach into the ground, and it's not like a pile of corn or something that when it's gone, it's gone. It's still there. And so, like, for that reason, I just would rather play it safe and not have these mineral sites throughout my property, limiting where I could hunt. Because sometimes these properties, I don't hunt the same spots year after year to the point you just said. Sometimes a buck that I'm targeting is, you know, coring up in a completely different side of the property than a different one I was hunting previously. And so if I have mineral sites out there without going through the work of filling them in and bringing in new soil and stuff like that to make it legal, all I'm doing is creating these little pockets that I really can't hunt around from a legality standpoint. So that's number one. But two, and I think you can probably relate to this some, is that I've just seen it's one thing to say you're trying to provide the deer nutrition value, right? And I think it's tough from a mineral standpoint because you don't control consumption in a wild controlled study to know that that buck grew 15 inches because you put mineral, or he grew 15 inches because he's going to do it anyways. And so from that standpoint, a lot of times I'm using mineral as an inventory tool, but to me, still my favorite inventory tool again, that you can appreciate is mock scrapes. So if I'm going to a property and I'm trying to get the best inventory, I'm gonna create mock scrapes. Even during this time of year in the summer, I still see more frequent buck visits at a mock scrape than I do a mineral lick. And so that's probably reason number two that I don't use a ton of mineral sites.
100%. I agree with you. I got to touch on, we're going to definitely, we'll talk about the mock scrapes this time of year too, because a lot of people don't even think about setting them up. But I have to just go back for a minute. In New Jersey, where we're allowed to bait here in New Jersey, and what I tell a lot of people with the minerals, I agree from all the research I've done, and I'm no expert, but from all the research I've done, and I sell minerals and I utilize minerals, but I believe firmly that you're gonna if you're going to have anything at all to do with the growth of antlers, I think that over the winter feeding after the season ends for the states like New Jersey that you can bait, I think that healthy over the winter feeding is going to do much more positive to the growth of the antlers because they're not going to have to send all the minerals and nutrients to their muscle mass and body to
Right.
survive the winter if you consistently are feeding them through the winter. I think that is a much more productive way of growing a deer total body weight and antler than just putting out minerals.
Yeah.
With that being said, I tell everybody, don't start feeding deer and stop. I mean, when I say that, I mean, especially in the winter, a lot of people will feed deer because they're hunting. The season here ends, what do we end? Right before Valentine's Day in February. In some parts of New Jersey, it ends. So baiting's legal. So a lot of guys will be baiting up until February, mid-February, and then they'll pack their stuff in and go away. Now, if you have a heavy snow and ground frozen, those deer haven't really been searching for the acorns and stuff because they know your bait pile's been there. And then they just completely stop. And it's obviously no expert to tell you that's probably the worst thing you can do. And then a lot of other people who kind of bait through the winter, as soon as they feel the first spring warm day, they think like, oh, the deer are fine now, but really there's no growth yet. So I think those are two of the biggest negatives with baiting and how people just stop.
Yeah, I would agree. To me, that makes a lot more sense. That's when deer need supplemental feeding a lot more when food is so scarce. This time of year, everything's green. They browse on literally everything. Nutrition's not as big of an impact. And two, I mentioned the food plots earlier. I've seen such a big difference in providing year-round food plots, primarily in the form of clover and chicory. That's my favorite. But to watch the utilization of clover and chicory this time of year, throughout the entire summer, throughout the entire fall, pretty much, other than maybe a short period where it goes dormant in the dead of winter. It's as close to a year-round food source as you can get. And to me, you get really good nutrition levels, high protein levels, all that type of stuff. And I just see way more frequent visits in a clover and chicory plot than I do at a single mineral site. And so that's, just to add another reason to that, as we're talking about the supplemental feeding and having food on a year-round basis, it's also one of the first things to come out of winter dormancy. It greens up really quick, your clover plots and stuff. So it's early spring food for them while everything else is, a little bit behind.
Right. Right. And some people do, I know folks that do it here. You can do small, almost micro food plots in different areas of small parcels and have success with it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking, especially if you have something that handles decent browse pressure, which some of the new clover and chicory varieties do a really good job, especially the chicory. It's unbelievable how well it handles browse pressure. But yeah, you can get, we're talking eighth of an acre, tenth of an acre, I mean, just a small clearing in a woodlot, and you can provide a good amount of forage for the deer. And again, it's kind of one of those things that I love helping people plant their first food plot as far as answering questions on how to do it and stuff like that. But I think people that don't do it or haven't done it, sometimes I think they're missing the boat in that they think it's just for guys with a bunch of land and a bunch of equipment, which couldn't be further from the truth. And two, kind of along those lines, it's too expensive. Well, I mean, think about the cost of supplemental feeding or just putting bait out for months at a time during the season.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty dang costly right there. So
Very.
I think you just have to kind of change or shift your mindset. If you haven't done it yet, understand that most likely there's a situation that you could make this work. It's not just for these big landowners that.
Right. Now we were talking, or you were talking about inventorying deer. What we'll do is we're going to touch on the advantages of setting up early scrapes, but I have to just say, because I know, again, we're totally different. Our states are completely different with the laws, as many states are. In New Jersey, here you're allowed 6 bucks per season. If you bow hunt and gun hunt and muzzleloader hunt, you can actually shoot that many bucks. Now,
That's crazy.
whether or not that's a good idea to shoot them 6 bucks, regardless, that's a whole nother topic, another discussion, and probably not with somebody from Iowa on the other end of the line. But that's a good New Jersey conversation I can have. But I
Yeah,
just want to say real quick something that I do tell a lot of people in our state and in states that um, you can bait or use mineral sites. As far as inventory goes, we're going to talk about these scrapes in a minute, which I agree with you. I think it's probably the best way of doing what we're about to talk about. But the other thing is with minerals in our state, I could tell you, I've seen plenty of guys, and I've done it myself, where if you get your mineral site set up, you get them established, and then you kind of do your last refreshing of the minerals somewhere around mid-August. In Jersey, Bow opens up right around September 10th, 9th or 10th. You have to earn a buck by shooting a doe first. So what I tell a lot of guys is, if you have stuff on camera and you have a mineral site going, and you got a water source not far, and you're all set up, what you could do is you could refresh in that mineral site in August, lay out, go get your doe early morning on Saturday at another spot. And a lot of times you will have bucks in like clockwork coming in to those minerals. And I tell everybody, the mineral site after opening day, unless you're on a big piece of property where there's no pressure, it's over. They pretty much don't touch them. As soon as the pressure starts in September, it's over until the winter again. So I think, like you, I think the mock scrape is hands down the way to go.
great. And to me, a mock scrape, big thing. I know even here in Iowa where you can't bait during the season, a lot of guys will use some type of feed or corn prior to the season to try and just again a quick inventory. Maybe they run it for 2 weeks prior to the hunting season, see what bucks are around, that type of stuff. But to me, I would way rather have one I see more regular, consistent activity on a mock scrape. But to me, that's also more natural huntable information, like actual real intel for me to make hunting decisions based off of, as opposed to redirecting their natural movement to a corn pile that I'm not going to be hunting that movement. So why do I care what intel that gives me? I just what deer around if I'm trying to put together a hunting strategy for a specific buck. The natural movement to a mock scrape and checking scrapes and creating new scrapes and all that type of stuff is real intel for you. I mean, you can apply hunting strategy to that. And I know it's different for states that you can bait in, right? Like you can is way more valuable.
Yeah, and I know you have a real good. We're going to get into your social media before we close this thing out in a little while, but you have a good video up there of yourself, how you make your scrapes, which is cool. I recommend people go there and check it out. I'm going to do a video myself of setting up a scrape from scratch for the person who's never done it before. But the people that are watching us right now, I bet you, I don't want to get into numbers. There's a decent amount that make scrapes, but I think a decent amount of the people who already make scrapes and hunt scrapes probably don't even think about making them until October. So I know you and I agree on the early scrape, and we're not the only ones, but just if you don't mind, I mean, you kind of covered some of it already. Can you give the folks some of your thought on why you're not waiting until October to make a scrape? Which, if that's the only time you can make a scrape because you're not allowed on a property, or you gain a property, let's say you gain a lease at the end of September, well, don't not make a scrape. But
Right.
if you have the ability, if you just could cover some of the reasons, your thoughts and your experience on why making one early, aside from inventorying, and hunting it, why do it now instead of just waiting?
Yeah, I would say a few things come to mind. One, just building off what I just said with regards to intel. You can still learn a lot, especially when it comes to targeting a specific buck, but even like property wise. You mentioned a new property. You have mock scrapes out this time of year. That's continuous intel you're getting about how the deer utilize it. Like, man, this is definitely a morning spot for them. It seems like they're always visiting this scrape in the morning before they're going back to bed, or whatever it is. It's just continuous intel all year round that helps put those pieces together for the fall. So that'd be one. Another Another big one too is just I think the earlier you establish a scrape, the more likely it is to result in like the community hub type scrape, the spot that every deer has to go to. And if you get to, rather than just going and finding an existing scrape and kind of doctoring it up, which that helps, but I like to try to put that scrape where's it going to be most advantageous for me for access, for hunting location, for a camera location, whatever it is. Where is a really advantageous spot for that community scrape to be for me? And the earlier I create that, the more power it's going to have compared to when the deer really start opening up their own scrapes, as you get closer to like the September time frame. So that's to me an advantage of creating your own early on, get deer used to it, using it. And I think there's this kind of, perception that deer really just use the mock scrapes during the fall, when they're establishing dominance and that testosterone's rising. But it's funny, if you start running a camera on a mock scrape or a scrape year round, it's eye-opening to see how they use it all year. I mean, I have a cool video I could pull up. I think it's a decent buck. You can tell he's a little bit older, but his antler just, a couple inches, just starting to grow, and he's pawing that ground. I mean, you can see dirt flying. I think people don't think about it. They think of that's an October, November type of activity, but they don't. I mean, that's just part of their nature, part of their behavior, and they'll utilize scrapes. Granted, it's not always at the peak aggression level that you see more often than the fall, but it certainly happens, and you certainly still get them scent checking it. Maybe not every day, but close. I have one scrape that's in a really good location, and I'll have at least one buck, if not multiple bucks, visit it every single day this time.
Right.
And that's just cool to watch, cool to see. And again, most people take their cameras down, don't think about it till you get close to hunting season. But I think you're missing a lot of information.
Yeah. And I tell people a lot of times, exactly everything you said there, 100% on point. And I tell people, if you set up an early scrape, the chances of a buck coming across that scrape, even if he's not one that frequents your scrape on your property, he likely will not forget where that scrape was with all that scent around it. And sometimes when they're miles away and then all of a sudden they're cruising, maybe they're after their second doe during the rut, they may cruise by that scrape, which you may only have seen that buck once, or maybe you don't even have them on camera. They'll cruise downwind or right across that scrape just to check it, and that's the deer that you shoot and go, wow, I never saw this deer before, because last time he was at that scrape, his antlers were 2 inches high. But they don't forget stuff like that, and they know where the doe herds are and where the other bucks are. So I think it's a huge advantage. I have scrapes out all year round. I rarely make a late season, or I should say, a scrape in October, November. Very rare. Mine are up and running. And another tactic I've utilized, I have some small plots where I basically will have like my 14-acre plot is my smallest one. I probably have I think I have two ladder stands up, and then I have some mobile pieces in there I can get up and down. But those two ladder stands on 14 acres, one of them I have a scrape 50 yards to the right and about 50 yards to the left along a natural corridor. And I can't tell you how many times I'll be up there and I'll watch a buck. Maybe it's not one that I want to shoot, but I'll watch him hit the first scrape. I can do anything I want. I can get ready. I can move around. He's on that scrape. And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, unless there's something that bothers him, he comes straight across the front of my ladder 20 yards away and hits that second scrape. Sometimes he won't actually hit it. He'll get close to it, get a little downwind, and just keep on moving. But that's a tactic that I use when I have a stand set up all year long. Almost always have a scrape to the right and left all year long.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a perfect example. You don't have anything to lose by running them year round. You really don't. Like as long as it's not a crazy amount of intrusion, you're going in there to pull an SD card every week or something like that. But you don't have anything to lose, and you have a lot to gain just with regards to helping create some of those routines of the deer checking those spots and just gaining that intel.
Yeah. Cameras were mentioned a few times. With scrapes, I mean, I've gone in to friends' properties and they've showed me their scrape. Sometimes it's because they're not happy the way it turned out or whatever, and I'll walk in there and there'll be a camera 4 feet in front of the scrape, vine or rope or whatever. There'll be a huge ammo box on the ground with a 12-volt battery in it and a shiny stainless steel cord wrapped all around the tree hanging. And I'm like, dude, why do you have that camera right in the deer's face? Like, I try to go back 20 plus yards. I'll actually set up a scrape and a camera at 40 yards. If the
Yeah.
pictures aren't working good, I might move it to 30 yards closer, to get it within 30 yards of the scrape. How do you set it up with the camera?
I think uh I might be the wrong person to ask because I'm so obsessed with like quality trail cam photos and videos that I would rather risk spooking the occasional deer than have these further back trail cam images that I can't always decipher, can't get as much intel. I truly love looking at quality pictures with deer's front and center like that. But there are times where I've tried to hide the setup a little bit more, especially when I know the exact buck I'm trying to go after. And there's no question I'm going to recognize him. I don't need to, I've got a bunch of really good pictures. I don't need to get more. It's just for intel or whatever it is at that point. But I think part of it, you almost have to answer the question of, too, like, I've seen such a difference in buck personalities or deer personalities in general. I shouldn't even just say bucks when it comes to camera. Some could not care less. They'll be in his face licking it. Doesn't bother them at all. Where I've seen others and specific bucks come to mind over the years that I've chased that have a little bit more of a timid personality. They get their picture taken and you can almost see them, backstepping to get out of there. And then you won't get a picture for a while. And then you'll get another one. And it's almost like you forgot, hit him again, and you see him backpedal again. Like there's some where it certainly bothers them. I would say, at least in my experience, the majority aren't trail camera setups. They get, it may show a little nervousness early on, but it doesn't take them too long to get used to that camera being at that location.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting aspect because I know probably 50% of the people I talk to are, oh, they're scared of the camera affecting the deer. And I think I'm also someone that I try to leave the cameras out pretty much all year. Now, of course, you have to move them, but if there's cameras and if I have spots that I am going to hunt those particular spots, maybe with the ladder stand and a scrape, there's pretty much a camera up all the time. And I think like anything else, they'll get used to it.
Yeah.
But there are, I think a majority of the issues that people have is, like you said, they don't realize, setting up a camera, it may not be the camera, but it could be the person who put the camera in there, all the scent you left, the 5 or 6 things you moved around, like some loose blow down branch, you start moving all kinds of stuff around. I mean, that's their
Yeah.
home. They know something happened,
Yeah,
you
for
know.
sure. I think that's a really good point. It always is helpful just not to be too sloppy with how you're getting in and out. If you have the luxury of doing it on your own schedule and can go in, sure, I think all that type of stuff helps minimize the impact it might have on some of those more timid deer.
Right, right. Any other tactics that we might want to implement as far as I know you mentioned something about habitat. I mean, the only thing I've ever done because most of the properties I have are not really I don't own them. So
Yeah.
what I own I can't really hunt on. It's not big enough. But the only thing I've ever done is sometimes I will if there's a certain corridor that was utilized year after year after year, and I see like a major blowdown or something in it, if it's early enough in the season, I'll clean it or cut it just to open it because that path of least resistance is surely the way they like to walk.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just out of or in the thick stuff. They seem to come out those same ways. So I'll clear those things up and I try to be as scent free as possible and do it at a minimal. And I also think about antlers and velvet and what they're going to hit and what they're going to avoid. And I have seen where I've cleaned like some really thick, bushy areas up where it's made a difference when I was in a stand and I had a deer 10 yards closer where I wanted them. So I've done stuff like that with habitat.
Yeah. And every property is a little bit different in what you can and can't do and what it needs done. It's hard to put a blanket answer on that, but it's just cool. I've enjoyed seeing because I appreciate the habitat and land management work. It's been cool to see just a little bit of a shift, I think, of people realizing what you can do to properties to improve the habitat, improve the setting for the wildlife. So that's been fun to see where, again, I'm in ag country, but to see guys start thinking about, well, instead of cash renting all my crops every year, maybe I could take this acres and put it into some type of habitat CRP program that's going to benefit a lot of wildlife. So it's just been fun to be a part of and fun to kind of see people at least start thinking about just other options for their property other than what it's been doing probably for a long time.
Right, right. Before, in a couple minutes, as we get ready to wrap this up, I'm going to definitely ask you just to go over a couple of things with your social media and how you got to where you're at, because you mentioned about how important those clear photos are to you from the camera. There's a reason why. I mean, we're going
Yeah.
to get into it. I want to ask you something before, but there's a reason why, and people who don't know your are will understand when we get to the end of this and we talk about your what you're doing these days in social media wise. But in a nutshell, the content you have is absolutely incredible. I mean, when I say content, some people don't like that word, but the footage that you have and you're watching your stuff on YouTube is tremendous. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but I just want to ask you real quick. Tell us a little bit about the trip you were just on. And I don't know much about it, but I know you were away. And how did it go?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was the trip of a lifetime for me. So I went to South Africa with a group of people from the hunting industry. I actually only knew one of them going into the trip, so it was a really cool opportunity to meet and hang out with a lot of good people. I mean, it was kind of a last minute invite for me, but I never really had the urge to hunt Africa. I didn't know if I would ever do it. And I think part of the reason for that is I think at least for me, and I assume for a lot of people, you kind of have this perception of what Africa hunting is. At least I'll speak for myself. To me, I always thought it looked to be pretty canned hunting. Like, you sit in a blind over a water hole and shoot, shoot. And so for that reason, I never really had this drive to do it. But this was more than just a hunt. We were going over there to kind of tell a story and create a film around the hunting community coming together to help some of the low income, poor communities over there through some work at schools, orphanages, things like that. So we had a number of days hunting. We also had a couple of humanitarian days where we did that type of stuff, packed meals, went and played with some of the kids at the children's homes and stuff like that. So from that standpoint, seeing the culture, opening your eyes to what else is out there, and I mean, really, how good we have it, enough to make it a trip of a lifetime. But then the cool part for me with the hunting is I was pleasantly surprised at how tough it was. This was nothing like I had ever seen. First of all, the terrain was mountainous, physical terrain, physical hunting. In fact, I would put it up against anything that I've done over here out west, like big game elk hunting in the mountains out west. Super, super similar to that. A lot of parallels. And I was doing all bow, spot and stock. You're getting high in the mountain trying to find mature animals to target, and then sometimes you're spotting them 3 miles away in a valley, and you can go try to find them. So super, super tough hunting, and every animal out there, or most of the animals we chased, were very, very tuned in. Our senses were next level. You got to think there's a lot more predators over there, or at least in their DNA, there's a lot more predators over there than we have here. And so their sense of sight, sense of smell, their hearing abilities, everything was next level. And so to try to get even within 70 yards of these animals was an accomplishment, let alone closing that distance for a good shot was so tough. Every second of that. That's what was kind of the icing on the cake for me, was just the quality of hunting. It was awesome. I only came home with two animals. I killed a wildebeest and a springbuck over there, which both were awesome experiences. But just the chase, I spent most of my time chasing kudu, which they kind of say is the African elk, and everything they did was just like an elk. A lot of times it was a bull with cows around them. But the biggest difference, in my opinion, between that and elk hunting, you can locate them, from hearing them, from the bugles and cow calls and all that stuff. The kudu didn't make those noises, so you had to actually see them to know that they're going to be there. And two, if you're elk hunting out west, a lot of times you can get close and cow call a bull even closer. There's no calling to the kudus. Those two big differences, in my opinion, almost made it harder than elk hunting out west in the States. But yeah, just an incredible trip. Spent about 2 weeks over there. The travel is not the most fun. It takes a long time. It's a long flight over there, but just such a cool life experience in general.
That sounds incredible. So we'll be able to see some of this footage down the
Yeah.
road.
Yep, for
Yeah.
sure. There's a number of cameramen there capturing it all, and I filmed a decent amount of stuff, and so I'll put some stuff together for sure, just to be able to share that experience.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I can't even imagine what that's like. And if you went there with expectations that weren't even at the level of it, what it actually was. For those of us who can't even, I don't really spend much time thinking about going there, but it
Yeah,
must really be something that is just in
it's
your
a
brain forever.
it is.
Great
I wouldn't
memories.
find a way to do it again. I never in a million years would have imagined that because, like you said, it wasn't really ever on my radar of something that I had. It wasn't, I never looked at like a bucket list hunt or experience or anything like that. But I certainly wanna find a way to get back there, take my wife over, and yeah, just like I said, just to see the culture,
Right.
not even just see the culture is an eye-opening experience.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Has to be. I want to ask you real quick before we get to the end and talk about the YouTube channel and stuff. Can you give us an abbreviated version of how Jared Mills got to where he is today? I don't know where you're going. Maybe you don't even know, but just to give folks that don't really know or do know you, just a quick little rundown on what got you started, how you got to this point in your
Yeah.
hunting career.
Yeah, my initial outdoor influence was my dad and grandpa. They weren't huge hunters. They enjoyed small game hunting, your squirrels, your rabbits, that type of stuff, but they were a lot bigger into trapping. And so some of my earliest outdoor memories were running trap lines with them. That kind of jump started my love for the outdoors and those experiences. The deer hunting came a little bit later, and my dad and grandpa both deer hunted some, but it was more your traditional gun camp type stuff. And I did that with them growing up. But then the bow hunting side of it, which is pretty much what everything I do career wise revolves around. I self-taught is just going out and cutting my teeth on it. Back then you didn't necessarily have the wealth of resources and information that we have now. So it was truly learning by failure. I'm super grateful for that because I think that is a big reason why I'm so obsessed with it today and have the appreciation for what it is today. It wasn't like I got shown the ropes on how to do that stuff, and I think there's something to be said for that because I think I appreciate the challenge the most. That's my favorite part about it. And if it was easy from the start today, to be honest, I'm just so obsessed with the challenge of it and continue to make it a challenge. So I would say I started bow hunting somewhere around middle school age, and it just kind of grew from there. And I was pretty busy with sports growing up, and I played college baseball for 4 years. I was getting ready to graduate is when I started thinking about a potential career in the outdoors. And I had reached out to Bill Winke about a potential internship, just doing filming and editing for him, going to college in St. Louis at the time. And fortunately, he had me come up and we kind of created this intern position, and that's where it all started. And I had bounced around a little bit career-wise after that, getting in and out of the hunting industry, getting into some sales stuff. It's tough when you have this idea of what working in the outdoor industry is, and then there's the reality of it. It's very, very tricky mixing your passion with your career because it can all start to feel like work. And so for that reason, I actually got out of the hunting industry and kept hunting. I wanted to keep hunting as my passion, as my hobby. But the kicker to all of it is I continued to film and edit for Winky. So that kind of kept my foot in the door of the industry as I continued to gain more experience and with different people working with different brands until I was able to come back into it full time. And so now my career revolves I'm in a little bit of everything right now with regards to just it's not just the content creation, but a lot of it revolves around that. And like you said, I don't love the word content either, but I've been filming and documenting my experiences for, man, 10 years probably now, filming every single deer that I've killed over the past 17 years. I can go relive that experience like that. I have every piece of footage, and that is the reason I continue to film. Even if no one's just single one of my hunts again, I would continue to take a camera to the woods with me every time. I love the documentation of it and the challenge of it, the challenge of creating high quality footage in a variety of scenarios, working with non-cooperating actors and wildlife. It's that's fuel for the motivation too. So, yeah, right now, career-wise, I do a lot of work for brands in the industry. Enjoy helping brands, grow helping brands with things like product development. Obviously, I do a lot of land management. I'm getting more into the land management side. I just love doing all that stuff, helping landowners set up their properties for the long term. And so, yeah, involved in a little bit of everything right now, but it kind of all revolves around the same thing, the passion for the outdoors and wildlife, the future of wildlife and the future hunting of our next generation too. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I now have a 6-year-old daughter. She killed her first deer last year, and so your mindset shifts a little bit. You start to think about you're wanting your kid and other kids to have the same opportunities that you have, and that's almost a responsibility of ours. It's not just automatically going to come, it's we have to kind of fight for it a little bit. That's something that I think about a lot now, and yeah, just I try really hard to keep it fun for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly glad that you still bring that camera with you because I got to tell you, and hopefully everybody watching this is going to definitely be heading over to check out your social media, but they have to get over there and check out your YouTube stuff because I've watched a lot of your hunts over the last year, and the most interesting thing is how calm you are. You are extremely calm. I used sometimes like if I'm done like sometimes when I need to take that Saturday relaxing nap, I'll put on like golf and lower the volume and it just you listen to the commentary, I just fall asleep. So I've tried it with some of your videos, but you can't fall asleep. You're as calm as the commentators that
Yeah.
you can hear the golf clap behind, but your footage is incredible. It really is. I mean, I think you do a lot of I don't know how much I don't know who else films with you, but I know you do a lot of filming yourself.
Yeah.
If not, you don't do all of it, right, yourself? Or is it
Pretty much anymore, it's all me.
really? Because it's incredible, Jared. I mean, the footage is obviously the quality is super high end. That's why when you mentioned wanting to get a close up camera view of the deer at the scrape makes 100% makes sense coming from you. But the footage you have out there in the hunts, obviously you're shooting some incredible deer. That's a whole nother story, but the footage is so good and it keeps you so interested and you're so calm about it. But you cover everything that people need to know as you speak about what you're doing that I think it's some of the greatest footage out there, really.
Appreciate that. I really do. To me, my favorite comment is that guy watches one of the videos that I put out and says that he felt like he was in the tree with me. He felt like he was sitting over my shoulder experiencing that. And each time I hear that, that's when I'm like, okay, I did my job because I want people to share these experiences with me and learn. I think the better the video it is, the less interruptions and less it kind of removes you from that setting, the more a guy can learn from that experience too. And so I think video quality, audio quality, all that stuff just helps make it real for guys because it truly is. It's as real as it gets. I work for everything. I'll spend a ton of time in the woods learning the deer, scouting, all that type of stuff. And sometimes when you watch these videos, you only see a little bit of it and it doesn't come across as relatable. So I feel like I have a little bit of ground to make up in creating that relatable feeling, at least telling the story as real as possible through the lens of a camera. And so that's why I put a lot of emphasis on the video quality and just being genuine with it and authentic. And I want people to not just be entertained, but I want people to be able to learn from it if they want to.
You're definitely what you're putting out there is definitely a little bit different than the way a lot of the other stuff is laid out for the viewers. Because I mean, my wife doesn't hunt. Obviously, she's around hunting because my whole family, everybody hunts. But it's funny because sometimes I'll be so in tune to what you're doing. And I got to say, like the YouTube footage that I see from a lot of different people, I watch tons of it now, more than I even watch stuff on TV. Because it's accessible whenever I'm ready to look at it. But my wife will sometimes she's always say to me, "Oh, I can't take it here, and all I hear is these hunters whispering." Right? So like, I think it was like probably like 3 months ago. I was watching. I think you shot. I forgot what you shot. 90 something inch buck or whatever, and it's on camera. And I'm watching, and she's like in the kitchen doing. She's like, "Can you please lower that? I'm tired of hearing these hunters whisper." I'm like, "Shh, shh, shh. Me and Jared are about to shoot a 190-inch buck." Because I was there with you, dude. I was in the hang on like 4 feet behind you.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, it really.
that's what I want to
You're
create.
getting what you like to hear, what you just explained, what people get out of it. they're getting it. They're getting it out of what you're putting out because it's
Yeah.
really cool. So it's different. It's really high quality, and you really feel like you're not only there, you're learning something, and you really feel like you're in a moment with you. So keep up the great work, man.
Man, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's one of those things that too, like, you and I are a perfect example in that I'm in Iowa, you're in New Jersey. The hunting is not the same. Yeah, I can't come hunt New Jersey the same way I hunt Iowa necessarily, and you can't come hunt Iowa the same way you hunt New Jersey. But there's always something that you can take away if you are open-minded about, and if the video is structured to allow you to take something away from it. So that's why. I want people to just enjoy the video, and sometimes they learn stuff subtly and it's not even obvious to them. But if the video is well done throughout the entirety of it, they're going to take something away that they can apply no matter where they're at, whether they're in Jersey, whether they're in Iowa, it don't matter. If you are open to it and it's structured the right way, you'll take something away from just being a part of those experiences.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true. Jared, let's before we wrap this up, let's make sure we make it easy for people to find you. Those folks that know you, hopefully they enjoyed this conversation we had. The folks that don't know you, it's not too late. Everything he has is preserved and the footage is there for you. And I actually work from the newest backwards because I had found your stuff probably like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But this year I really I was more in tune. It was so cool. I'd be waiting for something to get. Sometimes you'd see something on your social media, and then the video would come out, whatever, a little bit, 2 weeks or whatever afterwards, and I would
Right.
make sure I had the right time all alone so I could crank up my sound bar and sit there and watch it.
That's awesome.
Awesome stuff. So we got to make sure everybody gets to your pages. What do you? Is it? Give us your Instagram first. Is it just your name?
Yeah, it's Jared J. Mills on Instagram. I don't do as much on Instagram just because we go back to what we were just talking about, the storytelling. It's hard to tell a story on a 30-second video or whatever. So I mainly use that to supplement the YouTube channel. So on YouTube, it's just my name again, Jared Mills on YouTube is my channel. That's where I pretty much put the full length stories. I'm gonna start ramping up the content. Like I said earlier, I've been really busy this spring traveling and doing the land management projects, but I got a lot of content coming soon to that channel. So that's probably the best place if you want to truly follow along the entire.
So everybody listening to this or watching this, please do yourself a favor. Get over to YouTube, find Jared Mills, find his channel on YouTube, subscribe to it. You won't be sorry. A lot of times I'll subscribe to a couple things and then down the road I kind of get, I may not watch certain things, but trust me, when Jared Mills stuff comes on, it's worth watching because it's great stuff. And like Jared said, not only does he put you in the hang on next to him, but there's something to learn from what you're saying. And I'm not a video guy. I don't film a hunt. I mean, listening to you and some other people I've spoke to that said, "Oh, one of the best parts about videotaping my hunts was to be able to always go back and relive that." And you know what? That is so true and so incredible. And I don't really know it. I got a GoPro from somebody this year, and I may just do that weird far away GoPro
Yeah,
view. That's all. If I have that, I've succeeded for what I need. But
yeah,
I don't
100%.
know. I think the guys that do self film or are learning to self film or filming hunts with their buddies, you got to see Jared's channel, man. It's incredible. It's incredible stuff. And those people, I give you a lot of anybody credit for self filming. I don't even, I barely can get my shots off on an animal, but I give you tons of credit. But I'm sure the people who are into the filming and stuff probably already know who you are. And if you don't, you got to get over to his YouTube and subscribe because you won't be sorry. Like I said, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it. I have fun doing it, and people are always welcome to reach out if they have questions on the hunting, on the land, on filming, camera stuff. Enjoy helping people as much as I can, so people can always feel free to reach out directly to me too.
Okay, good. Jared, thank you. Thank you so much. The industry is lucky to have guys like you in it. You're a soft-spoken guy with a ton of knowledge and obviously a big heart in there and incredible knowledge and passion for hunting. Yeah, we're all lucky that you're doing it. So keep up the great work. Like I said, thank you so much for coming on with me. I really appreciate it. And we're going to see as we get closer to the season. Maybe we'll get you on for shorter content on some tactics. We'll see how it goes. But I know you're going to be busy, so I don't know, folks. Get a good look at this one because who knows?
Well, I appreciate you having me. Like I said, it was a long time coming, and excited that you had this up and going now, and looking forward to seeing where that goes. And yeah, let's for sure do it again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jared. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, man.
Take care. Bye now. At this time, we'd like to thank our supporters and sponsors. Signal 11 Lures, Lip Glue, New Jersey Multi-Species Podcast, Sever Broadheads, Jersey Fluke Bellies, Favorite Fishing Rods, Timberlife Outdoors, and Buck Knives. If you enjoy the content on our podcast, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications. And please tune back in for our next episode. Thank you.